Hi, hello, welcome to my channel. This video is a new frontier for me. I am filming a little reading vlog this week. What am I gonna do in this vlog? I'm gonna be reading mostly and talking about what I'm reading as it goes, like almost in real time. This was the Booker Prize winner for 2024. It is also a story about people who are on the last space station mission before the program is dismantled, astronauts and cosmonauts. I was looking at the Booker Prize nominees before it was announced that this won, and I was immediately drawn to this one because it was a Booker Prize nominee, now a winner, and then it was written by a woman, bonus, and then it was about like space and astronauts, and like those are all of I was like, yes, like what else do I need? So I haven't cracked this open yet, and I am going to come back. You know, the next little sit down chat in this vlog will be my thoughts after reading some of this, and I hope it's good. It has to be good. I mean, but I don't know, because what does an award mean anyways? You know what I mean? But no, I think it'll be pretty good. I'm just a couple pages shy of halfway through, and I've read this so far in about two long reading sessions. So it's a short book. It's about 200 pages, which is short for me, I guess. First off, my husband asked me how I was enjoying the book and what my general first thoughts were as I was reading it in that first session. He texted me, and I wrote back to him, which I feel like is still the case halfway through. This is an answer to the question, what happens when an artist is sent into space? Because while this is capturing a lot of real moments and realism, it's definitely not so, I mean, there's not a ton of stuff about scientific things in here at all. There is some of that grounds everything, but no, it's much more about like the interiority, the thoughts, the reflections of this group of about six or seven astronauts and their experience. Where I'm at right now, I'm really feeling like this is a really good documentary. Like, it doesn't have, so far, it doesn't really have a traditional, like, hero, like, yes, we know this is a character and we are following through, because we're actually following a bunch of different characters. And the other thing that I'm liking too is, as these astronauts and cosmonauts they're up in a space station, and as they are there, there is a mission being launched to go to the moon. And that is kind of interesting because the story keeps coming back to moon landing and where different characters were when that was happening, or where their families were, and so I'm really liking that anchoring device. What else do I want to say about this? The writing style I'm really enjoying also. There's a lot of descriptive language, and language that kind of piles on top of each other, and longer sentences and repetition. It makes you feel like a bunch of stuff is happening in a small space, and that's a really great parallel to what's actually happening in the book, which is a bunch of stuff happening in this tiny space station. So yeah, I'm liking the writing, and yeah, we'll see where this goes. I think I'm gonna finish this tonight, to be honest, because I'm really liking it. And I am back. Last night I finished reading Orbital. What do I want to say about this book? First of all, I think it's important to know that there's not really a thick plot that you can like sink your teeth into. And there isn't a character kind of interior, you're in their head the whole time, you're really in one character's head kind of narrative to this story. It's like I mentioned earlier, there's a cast of characters, and you do get into each one of their heads for short amount of time throughout the book. And actually thinking about that now, the little time you spend in the minds of each character, it's really well done, because you do feel like, wow, you know very specific things about these people, very universal things that they're feeling. So I think that's an accomplishment of this book. What would I rate this book? I think ultimately I would give this book 4 stars. It is a great book. What made this book a 4 instead of a 5 for me was because I just really wanted it to have more like a traditional kind of narrative, not necessarily a crazy plot thing that's happening, but just more of like a traditional kind of following a character in their journey type of a thing. Maybe if I had known a little bit more about how the book was set up and structured before going into this book, my rating would be different, but I mean, truly, you could just throw a rating out the window at this point, because it is a great book. It's an excellent book, and I recommend it to anybody, truthfully. It reminded me of, there's an episode of the podcast Radio Lab. I think it's called The Dark Side of the Earth. I looked that up before this, and there's an astronaut in the space station, and he's describing a spacewalk and just the kind of like repetitive nature of it all. And Radiolab was a favorite podcast of mine. I don't really listen to it too much anymore, but this book felt like an episode of Radiolab, but without the audio, obviously. That's what I mean when I said earlier that it feels like a documentary. It feels so real, and in that it is an achievement, because what it made me do was really think about the earth from this, like, high in the sky kind of perspective, not necessarily the day to day of like one person and their very personal journey, but really you're thinking like on a global scale, while still, as I said, really getting into the minds of the characters when you do. And I think that's, honestly, that's like a really great achievement. I also enjoyed the duality that was present in this book between space travel, like far off, going to the moon. Like this, there's another set of astronauts in this book that are getting ready and launching themselves to go to the moon. And then there are our cast of characters that are in the space station. And so there was a nice kind of duality there of these people who are stuck in orbit and they're kind of doing these repetitive things, and what is the purpose of this, and versus these other kind of like wild frontier boundary pushing people who are going to the moon because one day they will set up a station there that can then launch you to Mars. And so I enjoyed, there was something in there that I enjoyed, and I can't really articulate it properly, but it makes me think about how right now we're living in a time of technological advancements, of course, but we're also living in a time of like the things you have to do before the next generation does these amazing boundary pushing things. And some might say that like things you were doing today is a little less like cool and exciting than going to Mars or whatever, but it's still important. I don't know if that was the author's intention, to make you think about that kind of step between the big leap. I think one of her intentions was to make you think about the earth as a whole and not just these little countries and factions and groups of people in politics. And there was a really great passage about basically how politics suck. And no, it's much more eloquent than that. But yeah, so I don't know if, what was I saying? I don't know if her intention was to point out like the necessary steps that you have to do before you do something great, but I liked that. I think about that a lot when it comes to storytelling, especially about like space travel or advancements like this, because a lot of the times the story that we see is the one of like going off on the great journey and the blah blah blah, but what you don't always see is the everyday things that make that possible. But if I could zero in on one theme or one thing, one takeaway from this book, it would be that the earth is a beautiful, delicate place, and we're all just here playing our part in it. And yeah, when you step back and you look at something from this overarching perspective, like looking at the earth from a space station, all of the little things that are, the arguments, the politics, all of this stuff kind of dissolves, and what you really see is the beauty that is there. And yeah, we're all just on this crazy tiny little rock in the middle of space, and oh my god, that's wild. And yeah, so I think if you're in the mood for something that it will stop you in your tracks and make you really think about the world and give you just a big, broad perspective about things, I would reach for this book. So I'm gonna wrap up the vlog now. Kind of a vlog review. I don't know what I'm calling this, but anyways, I had fun. I had fun doing this in real time instead of reflecting back, and hopefully you enjoy watching it. So thank you, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.